This PLUSABLE Talks episode is made possible by Cherry Media, Eiffel, Dreamplay Media, Paco Luca, Moda Media.
Welcome to another podcast of PLUSABLE Talks. Great episode with one of my best friends. Yuri, two-time Emmy winner Alves. It's not every day that we can say that.
It makes me think of what Jim Carrey said. Remember when he was like, when I wake up in the morning now, I am two-time Emmy winner, Jim Carrey. And maybe now I'm enough. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Do you? Do you not remember that?
And how do
Anyway.
you feel? Do you feel that you're enough now?
No. I feel like, I feel very happy and proud. And of course, these awards are symbolic. It doesn't change what the film was. I mean, the film is still the same film it was, whether it had won an award or not. But, obviously, I'm happy, man. Feeling good, bro. I can't believe I'm doing a podcast with you after all this time.
In English. For the
This
first
is a
time.
thing. This is weird
Because I've
because
interviewed Yuri in Portuguese.
which I
before.
hate. I hate.
Actually, your Portuguese is pretty good.
Nah, not that good, bro.
No, it is. It is pretty good. And you've worked in Portugal, primetime television as well, and you have this found love for Portugal. You love 𝐏𝐋𝐔𝐒. Well, actually, he doesn't love 𝐏𝐋𝐔𝐒 in Lisbon. So your Portuguese is really good, but I also understand that...
And I'm sorry I'm vaping. I know you hate it.
No, I don't hate it.
I'm sorry.
Do your
It's
thing.
just-
So the thing is,
Yeah.
I understand that English is obviously your go-to language, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
You were born in Rio, but you came as a baby, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
And the purpose of this podcast, first of all, welcome to PLUSABLE Talks.
Thank you. Very nice. Shout out to my man Henan right there, making it happen. Holla.
Cherry Media. So the thing is, this is obviously a trilingual podcast. So if my guests tell me I prefer to speak in English, perfect. Let's do it in English.
Let's do it in English, man.
I've worked for many years, as you know, as a Portuguese ethnic journalist. So obviously the goal is to promote the Portuguese language.
Yeah.
But here the goal is not so much to promote the Portuguese language, but also share with the world inspirational stories. And yours is definitely one that, not because you're my best friend, but you're in a position that you can be a role model, and that comes with responsibility. So all these things are very fancy, very glamorous.
Let me take the red cup out of the way.
But the fact that you started your journey in Newark with this sole love for storytelling and cinema, and now bringing back to the same city that saw that birth of your love for cinema, these two Emmys, with pieces that were done and filmed and shot in Newark, and talking about where Newark was also the subject matter.
Sure. And with an all Newark crew.
Right.
As well.
So
pretty
this
much.
is a complete of a cycle that it's quite symbolic. How do you feel?
I feel a lot of gratitude, That's what I feel. Feel gratitude, and, these projects were very uniquely challenging for me. It's a format I had never done. I mean, as you know, I'm mostly, narrative fiction filmmaker, a documentary as well. But so this was a concert film, so it was a completely new challenge. And a lot of what was in my head was I kept thinking about the Fantasia, the Disney classic, right? And I've been a big, long-time fan of classical music since I was a little kid, because classical music and kind of soundtrack music for films, it's almost like that's where they exist in sort of a more kind of popular arena these days. It was a film that required the whole crew, the whole team, and I want to give a shout out to my brother, obviously, who was the producer, who I love so much, and he puts up with me, because I can be
That in itself is already...
that in itself is already...
Oh my God.
Yes.
I don't even know what's more admirable, the fact that he's Dreamplay CEO or
that he can put up with me.
You. I mean, that's one of those.
Yeah. Give the man like another 5 awards, please. And of course, let me just give a few shout outs here to everybody. I want to shout out 𝐓𝐀𝐔𝐒𝐁𝐋𝐄 because
which also won an award.
Who also won an award for coloring the films, and we had some great sessions, and he's just done so much, and we really appreciate 𝐓𝐀𝐔𝐒𝐁. We love him so much, and Carrie, of course, my baby girl Carrie, who I love. She's like the person that if I need to go and shoot, because we did a lot of stuff on there was the whole visual component to the film. So you had the concert film, and you had 14 cameras going live. And so and we had an empty arena, so there was all the complexities of just technically pulling that off. But then there was this visual component, which the New Jersey Symphony, I do have to give them credit for allowing me to. I had this sort of wild idea that I wanted to do this visual component where we would essentially, sort of show the transformation of the neighborhood through this pandemic, which was when we shot it, but always with this sort of with movement, so that the progressiveness quality of the classical music and the imagery would almost, in my mind, I wanted to create a sort of like hypnotic, almost sort of spellbounding kind of element. And of course, in those shots, which were outside of the symphony, Carrie was the main person that would go with me. And if I need to go into the mud to put the camera, she's like the person that will go with me, and she'll get dirty,
get rugged.
And so I love her. And I want to also give a shout out to Victor. He doesn't say much, but he doesn't have to.
That's why we probably like him, because he's just likable, Doesn't say much, doesn't bother anybody.
Yeah. And I also want to give a shout out to Sid, who's a very talented up and coming cinematographer who went to the Jersey City University, and his work is fantastic. I'm very proud. And of course, my main man, Mike Gomes, who's the Luz American DP, which you should actually interview here on the show.
I will.
At some
you got to
point.
bring Mike.
You got to bring Mike. You got to bring Mike. And I've collaborated with him on a few short films, and he's just so passionate. And
he's so talented. What a talent.
So passionate and talented, and I really enjoy working with him. And he's actually doing a feature film right now in Vegas with Mickey Rourke. Also, I wanted to give a shout out to Peter Morris. And anyhow, yeah, everybody that worked on the film, these awards are shared between all of them. With every project, there's always this sense of you're sort of willing everything to happen. It was the great fortune to have the conductor, the maestro, I should say.
Which is a huge reference in the world.
She's like a Jedi. When she's so expressive as a conductor. Because it was done during the pandemic, it was a few weird things, right? So
let's just bring a little bit of context.
Sure. So, I had 2 coffees. I'm sorry. I'm excited.
No, I understand. But so that people understand what we're talking about. So this is 𝐓𝐻𝐻, which is one of the awards, and we're going to go and talk about the other one, was about 𝐓𝐻𝐻, which is part of a trilogy of concert films.
Yes.
Done. Performed by the NJSO, New Jersey Symphony Orchestra.
Yes, which is located here in Newark.
In Newark.
Yes.
All right.
Mm-hmm. NJPAC.
NJPAC.
Yeah.
Right. And that then what made these unique, at least for me and from kind of someone who's watching from the outside, is that you, in a way, you intertwined the performance with the what was going on in Newark back then, right? With images of like the streets and the vibe. So like it's as if what I felt.
Well, the world altered, right? You stopped seeing faces. It's like
it was like a soundtrack for what was going on. So like that drama and the beauty and the drama as well of like classical music was actually served as the perfect soundtrack for the emotions that were going through everybody's minds during such unprecedented times.
these are timeless pieces. And so it's almost like we were, I think, all living in a moment where words really couldn't articulate anything. So to have that music, to me, was very inspiring. I mean, I was very, I was in it, man. I was, you know. I try to find the poetry. It's like what Tarkovsky says, right? Like, you know, a poet is someone who, with one image, is able to express a universal message. Not that, listen, I'm not trying to say Tarkovsky, we're not, you know, please don't misunderstand, but those
don't
are
sell
like,
yourself short.
No, I'm just saying those are things that are present in my mind, you know, this idea of trying to really have an image that could, you know, create an emotional response, and to have this glorious music as the background for the moments when we go into those visuals. It was a joy. I mean, it was, you know, as hard as the project was, it was kind of a dream for me at the same time. It was easy for me to give myself to this project because it kept me from going into, like, I guess, the depression. Because this was shot when we were in lockdown. I mean, we were in lockdown pretty much. You know? So even to get into the building, you know, we all had masks on. We had to take tests every day. I had this thing up my nose, like, I don't know how many times. I mean, hundreds of times. You know, I can't even breathe from this side. No, I'm just joking. I got some scars, all right? I can't even breathe anymore.
You sue the lab.
Yeah, but so, you know, all of that. It was like, you know, just a heavy atmosphere.
So it kept you mentally sane.
It kept me mentally sane. The post-production of it, though, that's where then I really went insane. Then we lost it. But
Right.
but while I was shooting, I was still.
But one thing that I have to admire, I admire you for many things, but one of them, in this case, it was technically the first time that you were shooting and doing a production of this kind with, what, 14 cameras,
14
right?
cameras live. We had, you know, we had, like, I don't know, maybe like 18 mics set up to record the music. Yeah, it was, you know, from a technical standpoint, it was very challenging for all of us. I mean, this was the first time for everybody involved, including myself, to do this. You know, I still remember, like, just having a little paper and just figuring out, like, where the cameras should go. And of course, in my mind, I looked at it like little mini scenes, you know? So having had the music beforehand, I tried to figure out a way where, you know, if I knew that it was going to be like the first violin, and that there was going to be almost like a you know, a back and forth between the first violin and the pianist, for example, it was like figuring out, putting the camera so that that scene was specifically shot in a way where you actually had this back and forth, and there was a relationship between that imagery. Each one of the films in the trilogy had its own sort of aesthetic, you know, each one had its own concept. What I had here, which is that weird thing about how through these insane transformative moments, an opportunity arises. The opportunity was, well, I can put the camera in places that normally you couldn't put them for this type of concert. Let's get the intimacy. And because you can't see the faces of the musicians, you know, in my head, I started thinking they were almost like ninjas. Like they were almost servants of this music. And just the eyes and the instrument, even the conductor. So, although it's strange, from a sort of cinematic standpoint, you know, it becomes inherently symbolic. So then it was about figuring out how, you know, we can move. We actually have moving cameras, and then we had to delete everybody for the wide shots, which, thank you, Gabriel, for that. That was a lot of work, you know, because we're all roaming around, and I was operating a camera too, because you know me, I don't like to be behind a monitor. Like, it's like, why should everybody else have all the fun? I want to be there. I want to be there with the camera. I want to be sweating. I want to be with everybody because I want to feel that, because that energy is, like, I live for that moment. And there was a sort of eeriness to that, you know? It was almost like a haunting quality. So hopefully all working together to create this experience that, you know, I believe could be very moving, especially for fans of classical music. I mean, you know, of course in my mind, I'm always like, even if somebody doesn't love classical music, how can I bring them in? It's a very sacred world, and so for me to impose and start to direct Shen, I think it took a little while to kind of like, I think, win everybody over a tad, and it was all very new. And again, I got to give the Jersey Symphony, the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra, a lot of credit, because
it was also a first for them.
Right, looking back at it,
sense.
Right, looking back at it now, you know, when you have like you're sort of in an ecstasy moment when you're shooting, right? It's like your mind, you're just kind of like, you go like, and I'm not even thinking about how this is such a radical thing for them, you know, to have them redo. You know, like it's like they're just not used to that. But by the time we got around to the second film and then the third one, it was very you know they're all
second nature kind of.
Well, I wouldn't say second nature, but
like comfort zone.
Comfort. It's almost like I think that we had that sort of like the growing pains of learning how it works, and I think they had already also seen the results of the first film. And little by little, you know, you kind of like, you know, have to win them over. And again, I just want to thank, you know, the maestro Shen for, you know, for trusting me and for putting up with me. We're doing things, we're changing speed. We're doing a lot of like technical things that it's even hard for me to explain to them because we don't have that much time. Just, you know,
it was very intense.
Just do it again.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember I had a little bit of a role in being the assistant of the assistant.
Carlos was the PA of the PA of the PA.
Of the PA.
He's the best third PA I've ever seen. I mean, really, when I would walk by him and I'd see him sleeping on the floor, I'd be like, this guy's really...
It was really intense.
Yeah,
I mean, it was really hard.
Yeah,
my job was
yeah,
really hard.
Yeah, especially when you were taking naps and stuff. I thought that was wonderfully
Those were
inspiring.
union breaks. All right? I told you, I already had that conversation.
Oh, yeah, let me give a shout out to Boris as well, who was our music. A shout out to Boris because he also composes a lot of the music for my films, and he's a great talent here. And so much talent.
And I wanted to bring Boris to the conversation.
Oh, you should bring Boris.
No. I'll bring Boris here, but like I would like to touch the topic of Boris.
Okay.
While I was on set with you guys,
yeah.
One of the technicalities, and for this to happen,
yeah,
was you needed a Boris. By the way, Boris is a great musician, classically trained musician. Probably arguably one of the most talented musicians.
He's a little genius.
He's a little genius. He's really talented and a great friend of ours too.
Yeah.
So actually, we're very lucky, very fortunate to have like this group of really talented friends.
For sure.
But you needed Boris to kind of read through what was going on, the piece, to tell you they're here, and I remember like, wow, that's really genius.
Yeah,
and even for you to understand that you needed that.
Right. So just to explain to if we want to break it down a little bit, you know, so you know we all have headsets, right? And so what Boris is doing is he's reading the sheet music, and of course I already have a lot of things kind of planned out, but you know, they never perform everything exactly like the recordings that I got, right? Because every orchestra will then, the conductor does it at different times. So, you know, what Boris was doing is while we were shooting, we're all talking and communicating to each other, but then I'm hearing, so like we can understand like, oh, okay, like, you know, the first violins are coming in the next like 30 seconds. So knowing that, we would sometimes have to coordinate where it's like, okay, so while they're performing, all right. But I love all this crazy shit, bro. You know, that's what I love. You know, I live for that kind of stuff. So the crane had to move out of the way so that the operators can come to get the shot. You know, we had to get on our knees and we're just like, shooting, you know. And then it's like, and then suddenly it's like, okay, now we all have to leave so that we can be clear for the wide shot, which was the closing shot, you know. And so it was almost like we were doing a sort of dance. We were doing our own
choreography.
We were like camera operating choreographers while the musicians were playing this live event in order to be able to get some moments that were really important that I wanted to punch visually, whether it be, you know, for the ending of a song or a transition from the other. You know, those were the very important moments.
something that is really, really, really hard work. And then it's not only like all these moving pieces while the production is happening and while you're actually shooting. Yeah. It's also then the post-production and editing all of these 14 cameras and moving elements and making sure that you're editing the right part of the song, like if it matches. Like it's crazy work. Right. And how long did you have to do all that?
You know, I'm gonna tell you something. Honestly, it's such a blur right now, bro. It's such a blur, the whole thing. Can I just pick this up real quick? This is my boy Chris Goodwin. Yo, Chris, what's up? How you doing? It's okay. Listen, I'm in a podcast right now. I just want you to know. So say hi to the people. I'm doing a podcast with my boy. I'm doing a podcast with my boy Carlos. You're literally on speaker in the middle of this podcast, and we're gonna give you an official shout out. Just Chris Goodwin, one of the most talented screenplay writers out in LA.
Thank you.
Say hi to the people, Chris.
Hey, thanks. I mean, most people won't hear this because once they hear me talking, it's gonna be as soon as they can hit the forward button, they will.
No, don't you dare say such a thing.
Welcome to PLUSABLE Talks. Don't forget to subscribe and share. All right, Chris, love you.
Okay.
I met the head of development at JDB's company. That dude, I met his whole team. JDB, man.
Nice, bro. We'll talk as soon as I'm done. I promise.
But they're all really excited about your movie. Okay, I'll let you go.
Good things are happening, guys.
Good things are
okay,
happening.
Thanks, brother.
You know,
right.
Deals in
Peace,
LA,
Chris,
you know, like, you know, it must be nice to be the life of a.
That was cool though, right? I love Chris, man. He's got a movie coming out soon. It'll be awesome. You know?
And he's
another person that, like, you know what?
A screenwriter
And somebody. I met him at Fox Digital when I was in LA. I was working at Fox Digital for a while, and he was actually my producer. You know, you find the people, man, throughout the journey that you really identify with, and he's one of them. And so anyway, shout out to Chris Goodwin.
Right, Chris Goodwin.
Chris.
Perfect. And so this obviously, as we were saying, is a result of a lot of hard work. And I remember seeing you editing and being there with you, like those crazy nights, editing all of this. It was pretty intense. Yeah. So
a special shout out to Dan Dowding as well, who did a lot of the AE work, and he had to do a lot of the work syncing. He's out in LA. We love you, Dan. Check out his company, Media Pollution. They're doing really big things, man. I'm so happy. All my friends are doing so well, man.
So this is the result of a lot of hard work, right? And and a lot of people see this, that you know, have all these contacts in LA, and then we're gonna get there that you also lived in LA, but and see you and it's cool and all this awards, but they forget that there's a lot of work and there's also a lot of sacrifice to be at the level that you are, because the film industry could also be pretty cruel.
I mean, I think it's just having your value system. You know, it's like the thing that I preserve and that I protect is essentially the spark that started it all. And that is what I don't let them touch that. It's like in The Godfather, man. I'm sorry. I'm going to use a Godfather quote. I can't help it, guys. I just saw The Godfather Part 2 in Santa Monica on the big screen, by the way, with the 4K. They did the 4K screening. It was so fucking amazing. What a great movie. What a great movie. Anyway, in The Godfather, there's that line where he says, it's the price you pay for the life you chose. And it's like, that's what it is. It's like, okay, you know, like, you're going to come across that. And I don't know. I don't even know if that'll ever change.
Because on the streets, I look at it like this. Either you all in or you're not. I'm trying to get paid, baby.
There's works in loop, man. What's going on?
I started making movies when I was like 13 or 14 years old. So it's like I've always had a project that I'm working on. When I started making little short films, you know, with my like 𝐏8, we're talking DV, not even mini DV. This is before all that. You know, early on, what I fell in love with was the expressive nature of the actual movement and the language of cinema. It makes me feel a certain way when the camera is, you know, doing this lateral parallel movement, which is essentially a dolly shot, which I learned all that later on. But, you know, like in what a close-up does, what a wide shot does, what panning left, panning right, like, so all of sort of the alphabets of like what you can do with a camera, I just kept exploring it, and I was just kind of like, and I was almost like, oh, that's interesting, that's not, okay, so I just filmed a bunch of nothing, of just us hanging out. I mean, I literally have, it's a movie I'd like to make one day, by the way. I literally have all the last 3 days of school from my freshman year to my senior year. I have like 2 days of like essentially a documentary of me and all my friends, and we were all a bunch of. No, we were nice guys, but we were a little rebellious, and it's just just filming us kind of living life, and just enjoying and chasing girls and and making jokes and busting balls and all that, And of course, it was only like a very like multicultural group, because we grew up over here, where it's like all our friends were like, like I guess most of my friends were Dominicans. I had my Portuguese friends, obviously, but so we grew up around a lot of Dominicans and Puerto Ricans, so we were always like, so all this kind of, that kind of like reality, it was always very exciting. And, and these guys were all characters, because these people,
they were your main characters.
They were my main characters. So what I would do is like, I remember at one point, like I would go, because there was a lot of fights in school. So what I would do is I would go and I would film. I started filming the after school fights. Because to me, it was like, I got like a whole thing set up, And of course, there's always a fascination with violence. I mean, we can't help it. Especially at that age, what's, what is that? What is this thing? It's like, it's in us, And so in a lot of these kids and a lot of the people I grew up with, obviously, these are not people that came from necessarily great homes. So there was always a lot of tormented internal conflict, and I knew them all so intimately, so I understood them in that way. So when there was these cool fights after school, I would go and I would film them, and I would use like different styles of filming them, and I would capture the crowd. It wasn't just about the fight; it was about capturing the energy surrounding that fight, and and just in a sense, like what is that? What is that excitement? And so I would shoot, and then I would put them in a VHS tape, and then I would sell them for my locker, and then it got to a point where. When people were fighting, they would wait for me to show up because they're like, well, we're not going to fight and not have Yuri film. They're like, what the fuck? Let's wait for this guy. Of course, I was in detention because I was a straight F student. Shout out to all the straight F students. It's okay. It's going to be all right. But, because I was always just in my own world, So I would go there and I would film. And then I remember that my vice principal, Ms. Bombolevich, which I love, she was amazing. She brought me into the office and she's like, Yuri, I know you're into this film thing, we get it, but it's like, apparently you're selling fights. It's like, she's like, I don't even know if you can do that. I don't know if it's illegal. And I was telling her, I was like, I'm a documentarian. I mean, these fights are happening anyway. I'm just capturing them. And, and she was like, just knock it off, just if you can. So my whole distribution deal of fights.
And you were making money back then.
Yeah, I was selling them for like $5, man. Whatever. Better than selling drugs. Like a lot of my other friends, okay? All right, but like,
you find it safer.
Yeah, but that kind of like that didn't last for too long, and then I started actually making little short films, and I would take, like if I had to do an essay or something, like we did the Crucible, and you have to talk about the themes of the film of the book, and I was like, oh well, can I make a short film that explores the themes from the book, and express to you that I understood the book.
And they're like, you're gonna have an F anyway. Might as well give me the film. Maybe it'll surprise me and give you a D or something.
Exactly.
D minus.
It was a combination of them being a really amazing staff at the
Out
school.
of desperation.
And also they were like, I can't just go do it, Yuri. I mean, And so then I sort of updated and I did like this modern sort of updated version of the Crucible, and I would involve my friends. I wasn't friends with like the acting crew. My friends were not those guys. Mm-hmm. We were not those people involved in any of that kind of stuff, right? But we had a lot of time on our hands after school, and everybody was getting into a whole lot of trouble. So I would take what I knew about them, whether it was, that they came from some kind of broken home, or that there was some kind of issue. Like I understood what they dealt with, so this was like my easy way to kind of find a way to create a performance from them. Was I would create a story where they would have to confront a sort of internal thing that I knew that they had, so that I would plunge a sort of quasi character based on them into a narrative, which I guess is like a combination. It's almost like this sort of like neo-realist kind of style, which I really fell in love with neo-realism. Neo-realism became the thing that I prayed to for a very long time, because it was like, okay, oh, I can make a movie.
It's the most cost-efficient way of also doing
exactly.
it.
It's like, oh, I can make a movie like that. Okay, cool. So yeah, you could just fucking make it scrappy and just like it doesn't matter because you're expressing something human, and therefore it doesn't have to have all this polish. I don't know how to polish anything and make
like
anything.
having a Chris Santiago playing a Chris Santiago-ish.
Yeah, no, but Chris
character.
Santiago, no. He was a terrible actor. He couldn't. Listen, Chris, I love you, kid. I love you so much, bro. But yo, he couldn't even walk in the background. I always make fun of him. I would use Josh and my buddy Demis, you know, somebody who I also love so much.
Hitman.
Hitman, the Hitman. No, Chris Santiago managed to fucking find a way to like ruin every shot he was ever in. Like I was like, just walk in the background, Chris. You know, this is like I'm like 15 or 16, right? And he's like, I got you. And then of course he would walk, and he would always walk, and he would be like doing this kind of thing, and I was like, Chris, nobody walks like that. It's like just walk normal.
Like walking.
He was trying to walk and always trying to or he would always do this thing where he would like looking to the left and to the right, and I was like, what are you looking at? You walk down the street, man. It's like, you know. So I was just joking. I'm just joking, but I'm serious.
What did he say to that? He was like, yo, man.
No,
you're picking on me.
Nah, he was like, just give me one more chance.
And he never got it.
I gave him one more chance, and then that was it. And then I was like, you're done. You're done.
What did he say?
He said, well, you know best, you know. And I was almost casting people based off of their faces and their mannerisms, and just kind of like, because I was like, you know, it's like 80% of it is already done for me. Like he already embodies a certain aura that I want in this movie. When I realized that, oh, wait a minute, you can just shoot again and again and then pick the shot later, it was like my mind was blown. Because the way that I had always made movies at that time
was one shot.
No, it was like, how can I make an edit? And I thought, okay, well, if they say the word until this moment and then they freeze, right, just at the right moment, and I stop the camera, and then I would like walk around, you know, and then I was like, and then they continue, and I remember that the camera had a 2-second lag. So when I would say action, they would need to not go right away. They would wait 2 seconds. We got really good at this. So then he would continue. So I was like, okay, so I got a shot. So I'd have the wide shot, then I'd have the close up. Of course, the sound was always fucked pretty much, you know, because I was so far from them, you know. So that was a headache. But I did a lot of silent movies at the time, you know. But I didn't. And then for me to put the music, this is how I found out how to do it. I would put headphones from a disc player, and I would sort of grab them and put them on the, you know, right on the speakers of the little Hi8 camera, right? And so then that had a 3-second lag. The camera had a 2-second lag, right? So now we had to do the math, which I wasn't too good at, but we figured it out. And then, so then when I would hit play, when I would hit record, they would do what they were doing. They knew where they were going to stop for where my cut was, and I had to play the music, and I had to stop the music, and they had to stop, so I would freeze everything. And then I would go, and then I would continue, play the music, play the shot, so that the music could have cuts while the music continued to play seamlessly. Which seems like such a crazy thing, but it was almost like the greatest film school. Because, first of all, when I got home, my movie was done.
And you say that the filmmaking...
I don't know if it was the best school. It was definitely like a way to, once you got to...
work with what you had.
Yeah.
But you also say that filmmaking is a great thing. And what makes you say that? And what has filmmaking brought to you, or like in terms of your human sensibility and dealing with all these people? Why do you find it so fascinating and so amazing?
It's very exhilarating, you know, and it's one of those things where it's a wonderful experience to have all these people collectively working towards a goal. You know, I think that there's a sort of, I don't want to sound like that guy, but you know, but I'm going to be that guy. It's like there's almost a sense of a sort of spiritual kind of element to having that, to having just people, everybody just focused and trying to make this thing the best it can be. and it's a very magical thing, and you have so much to play with film. That's I think what's so wonderful about it. It's like you have the framing and the movement and the character and the background and then the colors and then the editing and then the style of all that, and or the lack of style of that, and and then finding the tone, which to me is like, I feel like the most important thing. It's just like, like I always talk to you about that. Like, it's like music. It's like, you have like heavy metal, you have hip hop, you have all these like sub genres within it. And it's like, and what that really means is that there's a specific language, which means that there's the lack of certain things, and not having those things are what make that be a distinct style. So with a movie, it's very similar. It's almost like, oh, does this movie, are we following him? Is it a first person perspective? Do I want to make it so that you're with the character every movement, so you're experiencing what he sees, so it's like his point of view? So it's like, I think it's, for me, it's like this. What's very exciting to me is like this. Obviously it's everything, but it's understanding the point of view. What is the point of view? And understanding the tone. And the characters and all that, but I feel like, once I have that sort of in my mind, and I feel confident about, like, yeah, this is what it is, it almost allows me to kind of play into a more sort of intuitive place, which is to me really the greatest part of filmmaking. And I know that this is like the thing that producers hate to hear, because everybody likes everything all planned. And I'm not saying that I don't like to plan everything, especially nowadays, but I always love, and I think it's because I came from this world of like doing guerrilla filmmaking, where it's like, like you have no preconceived notions, because you're going to show up. I mean, I used to get arrested all the time when I was shooting my short films. We had plastic guns that we painted in black. Like it was like, the cops would show up and they'd be like, oh, it's at first. I remember I remember one time we were on the rooftop over there by Kmart, and all the cops showed up, and it was me, Chris, and our boy Jesse, and they were just like all aiming guns at us. And I'm like, I had to explain to them that I'm making a movie. Of course, there was no permits, there was none of that. We were just wild boys like that. But they started to get to know me, and so after a while, they was just like, oh, here's this guy again. You know what I mean? The purest form of filmmaking, like the most pure, I would say, would be documentary.
Tenho visto milhares de estrangeiros que adoram o fado, às vezes de lágrimas nos olhos, e não entendem uma palavra daquilo que está a ser cantado. Há uma magia na forma de se cantar o fado que atinge qualquer pessoa de qualquer língua e qualquer nacionalidade.
Há 60 anos de trabalho e, felizmente, ainda ninguém se queixou.
I think that's what everyone is looking for, is that
whatever makes them happy, and to continue to do that.
É uma coisa que a gente canta para os pais, para os filhos, é uma coisa do coração.
É através, precisamente, da arte que muitos se têm feito imortais.
In terms of, now you see, and this is 2 Emmy Awards, but you've won several awards throughout your life.
Right.
With all these experiences and growing, so like you were born in Brazil, your family is Portuguese descent, you're the Brazilian that speaks Portuguese with the
a gente também pode falar assim,
a gente pode falar assim com sotaque mais tropical, né?
Sim,
não?
Gente, carioca,
but
né?
It's funny. Remember when we used to go out and meet these Brazilian girls that are like, yeah, o meu amigo é brasileiro, eu sou brasileiro, carioca.
Why you embarrass me about that?
They're like, yeah, right.
No, cut that out, bro.
No, people.
Come on, man.
People need to know the truth.
I got the 2 Emmys now. You can't be telling them stories like that.
But like going back to the Emmys, and you've won several awards throughout the years. How would you define your style, or what do you think you have that makes you pretty unique?
Because it's just a part of me. Mm-hmm. It's just, again, it's just like I've always just had it in my life, Like, it's. I know. I wish I had a better answer for that. I don't know.
It's just a part of you. It's hard. I understand.
The thing about like being a director or a filmmaker, it's not like an engineer. Like if you're like an engineer, you gotta go. They have to give you a certificate. For me, it was like I was in love with films since I was a little kid. A lot of that comes from my father too, who's a big cinema fan, especially Sergio Leone. We would watch, of course, westerns.
Cuando él descubrió que yo y ella estuvimos juntas, Joan, él se enfadó mucho, ficó pasado, se puso como loco. Empezó a amenazarme, pero era todo de boquilla, la boca para afuera. Joan, incapaz de hacer eso, él es un puto ciumento. Y después se acojonó, ficó bien cagado con lo que pasó.
If you're a filmmaker, you just wake up and you say, it's like, well, that's what I did. I woke up and I said, I'm a director. And I just started making movies. It was just like, you could just wake up and tell yourself this is what you are, and then you go do it. You know, it's like, you know, I don't have to show a certificate. You know what I'm saying? That's the other thing about filmmaking that is very interesting, is that it's just this thing that, like, I mean, obviously, you can't just say that and then not have anything to show, but, like, you could literally give yourself that title. That's just what I did. Like, I started on the top. I was 13 years old and I said, yo, guess what? You're directing a movie, kid. And I was like, oh yeah? Like, yeah, okay, cool. And that was it. And then, you know, and then you just kind of did it. So it's a very kind of,
and actually today you've worked, obviously, in Newark. Your life, you're in Newark, LA, Portugal, Europe, Newark, LA, Europe. We've gone to Paris together with a great adventure as well.
That was a great time, for sure.
Where do
I don't know if
feel
people know that this man speaks French. Give him a little French, man.
No, mais oui, un petit peu, non? Je parle un petit peu de français, oui.
Oui, oui.
Oui, oui. But it was actually pretty draining, because I was like being your
Stop
interpreter.
Stop being such a complainer. Jesus Christ. We were doing so good. Now you're complaining. What the fuck?
And at the end of the night,
don't ruin your podcast.
Really
don't ruin your podcast.
But actually, it worked out. I thank God for my French teachers that
was such a
that for 7 years, I guess they helped. They came in handy.
Not all is lost, huh?
Not all is lost.
Yeah.
But where do you feel the most comfortable? Where it's like you find yourself, you love Portugal for certain things. You've worked in Portugal, got to deal with the most, you know, renowned actors in Portugal as well. Diogo Morgado, Rui Unas,
𝐓𝐀𝐋𝐿.
Estava tudo à volta da casa de banho dos rapazes. Eu fui lá ver o que é que se passava. Estava escrito nestas letras: a Sara Garcia é uma grande puta. Contente.
What do you get from all of these markets, and what do you feel more comfortable being the Newark guy that represents Newark and all these places, bringing these influences back to Newark, just, you know, finding yourself in all of these three markets, essentially East Coast, West Coast, and Europe?
The question is, where do I find
yourself? Where do you feel more comfortable? What do you take from all of these experiences?
I take so many things from all of these experiences, man. I mean, so many things. I don't know. I don't know where I feel most comfortable. I'm just like, you know, like I feel like I've been living a life for the last couple of years where I'm like always here for a little bit, then I'm here for a little bit. So it's like kind of like I'm, you know, like I'm living in this kind of strange, it's like Bob Dylan, no direction home. You know, like I feel connected to things when I'm here. I also feel connected to things when I'm in Portugal.
Anxious kind of mind that resulted right now, recently, into Emmys, and one of them was also for the movie Grind.
Yeah, the film.
No Days Off.
No Days Off, which was again like a sort of in a weird way, actually.
Neorealism.
Well, in a weird way, that was almost like a complete extension of the very beginning of the films that I started doing, which
in
was
a more refined, polished way, of course.
Sure, yeah, for sure, yeah. You know, we shot it with the red, and like we had the anamorphic
Justina
lens.
Valentine was also
and
part
Justina
of it.
wasn't part of it, even though she never gives any love to the movie. Yeah, I said it, but we still love you, girl. You know what I'm saying? Represent Newark. What's the matter with you, bro? She went Hollywood on us. But no, it's all love. I'm just joking.
Leave it right there.
Of Robert Wilmot, who I met in the after hours, I think with you on one of those turn-up nights, Mr. Ferreira. And he was a security.
And it was like, oh, that's my boxing trainer. Like,
yeah, he was a security. Actually, you know what? No, that's not true. I was with Phil Mazzo. The first time I met him. You told me about that then later. And yeah, and it was like
I took you to the gym or something.
You took me to the gym. Yeah. So here's the story. So this is how like this movie came about, and this is like a real like Newark like how a movie gets made in Newark is just like that, right? So I'm in After Hours. I'm walking in. I'm with little Phil Mazzo. Check him out, Phil Mazzo, stand-up comedian, all-around crazy guy. We love him. And I'm walking in and I see this dude, man. And he's this big, brolic dude, but with very, very
strong feature.
with a strong presence and very charismatic. And I knew that he wasn't from here because he had an accent, African accent. So it's like he didn't grow up in Newark, you know. And so I walked by him, you know, and we start talking and shit. And you know, I tell him I'm a filmmaker, and he kind of tells me what he's got going on and all that. And I had been working on a script that was essentially like a blaxploitation movie that I really wanted to make. And it's almost like when I saw him, I was like, oh man, this looks like exactly how the guy. So that movie never got made. But anyway, we started a friendship. I met him a few days afterwards, and I knew that. Then I found out that you had trained with him. Anyway, long story short, he has this incredible life story, you know. And although I never got that other film off the ground, like so many others that just, you know, there was an opportunity to do these profile pieces on various different people from Newark. I did one on Natalie Beach, who was the Falu singer. I did one on Tommy Cuba, which was On the Cusp, a skateboarder who was behind the founding of the Shorties, which is no longer there. And then Robert Wilmot, who had been this immigrant, which I connected to very much, who had come here from Liberia with his family and then fell, you know, into, you know, a gangster lifestyle, which was making money fast and to some degree is understandable. Ends up, you know, going to jail and has this sort of awakening. And then comes out and then starts to become an instructor to various kids in the neighborhood, training them through boxing, and but not only boxing, just like weightlifting, all of that. And I thought, from a filmmaking standpoint, right? He's so big. It's almost as if the transformation of his story was symbolically in the transformation of what he looks like. I had him do his own reenactments. Right? So it's like, you know, so the whole movie is told from the perspective of him inside of a prison, and the prison and as he's in the prison, the story is unraveling, right? And we actually, by the way, which is so fucking wild, we shot the prison that we shot the scene of him in prison for that moment had been the exact cell that he had gone to, which no longer, which was now not operational, but has now been became a set for people, you know, like me and other filmmakers to use.
3 years and a half. Hey, yo, Xiao! Hey, yo, Xiao!
When he shows up on that day, you know, he was very emotional, and he was like, "This is exactly the place where they came and they held me." And I was like, he's like, and he kept thinking, he's like, "You're a genius, Yuri. You fucked with me." And I'm like, I really didn't know. Like, you know what I mean? So, but then once I knew, I was like, well, which one of the cells was it? Because now we're going to go to that one. He's like, might as well. So we actually shot the movie about this guy's life that was transformed.
It doesn't get any more real than that.
It doesn't get any more real than that. And that's what I'm saying. It's like there's this something, it's like...
And there's something also about you captivating people in a way that you get the best out of them. You know, like to open and you bring them back to a time that of their lives that was quite painful, and you know, they just share that with you for the world to see. You know, that's a huge responsibility. You know,
right?
Directing them also comes with a lot of trust in you. You know, you have like those minutes to just trust me blindly.
Right.
Let me just.
Well, that's the most important. That's the best word. You know, and for all you producers out there, and everybody in film. That is the most important word of all. It's just trust. You cannot do it without that trust. You just can't. It's not enjoyable without trust. You know, like I've worked on projects where I can feel like there wasn't trust. It's just like I fucking hate it.
Right.
It's like, you know, like you gotta if you want to do films, you gotta have the courage and the bravery to trust. Like you just have to. It's like everybody, from the talent that's on the camera to the people behind, to
the DP,
to the investors, to the producers, all that. In the end of the day, if you don't have the trust,
don't even go there.
It's like don't even go there. And if you try to control, you're never gonna get what it could be. it's really, that's what's so special about it, because it's a rare thing. So many things in life, and even in whatever, a career path or whatever, it's like, you know, it's almost like everything is like organized in this way where it's like you have all these protocols, right? So like, no, it's like with film, it's one of those few things, and not, you know, not only, but like where there's this human element that is this thing, this unspoken trust.
Right.
And it's like, and I think that what you're talking about is just that I've been lucky enough to be able to have the people that worked with me in that capacity when it comes to the films that I've directed and stuff, where they give me that trust. And, you know, and it's like, and I think I earn that trust by just not having any pretensions, not having just being.
You're just very real, and that's true. And
it's just like,
shows.
You know,
and it comes off in your work.
Because what are we doing here in the end of the day? Or it's like, you know.
But not everybody's that real, especially in the entertainment industry. There's
sure.
So
well, those are not the people that I'm around then, man.
Of course.
Or are not around for them
or you
for
don't
too
want
long.
to be around.
Not really, no.
Right now, what do you have that you want to work in the near future, or what can we expect from Yuri Alves in the near future?
Well, you know, during the pandemic, after the concert films and all that, I'm obviously working on a documentary, post-production. It's been a very long time coming.
Dun, 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 dun.
We're not going to get into it too much because it's weird to get into it, but it's a very, very special film. It's taken a long time, and it's coming. I promise that, and so I'm focusing on editing that in the next couple of months. And then I've just been writing a lot, you know. I wrote like 5 feature-length screenplays in the last like 2 years and a half, 3 years. I wrote stuff with my buddy Harold. I wrote stuff with my buddy Benjamins as well. And like, you know, I've gotten these co-writers to work with me, and it's just been, you know, been doing that, just, you know, really taking advantage. I mean, especially during the pandemic. I mean, we were lucky to have that project, but after that, it was like there was nothing happening. Nobody was really shooting. It was tough to shoot. You know, the whole industry was kind of in this weird place. So, you know, so I just did a lot of writing and debts on debts. You know, you gotta all putting debts together, but. So that's it, and these are all films that, you know, I hope to make. You know, I believe in them, and they all are, you know, they're like, a lot of them are genre films, which is very exciting because I love genre cinema. You know me, I love everything. You know, I literally love everything. You know, so it's but only some things are really, really, really near and dear to me. Like, I enjoy a lot of things, but there's only a few. Mm-hmm. Like, if I have to talk about a film, like for example, a movie that. You know, a lot of people sometimes are like, oh, this movie changed my life. You know, it's this whole thing. But there is one movie that I would say, like, was really that film for me. And that was Raging Bull. You know, like, that was a movie. That's a movie that I can literally say, it wasn't the most fun film that I watched. But I remember when I saw Raging Bull for the first time,
But it was because you were younger. You really love Martin Scorsese.
Of course, I really love Martin Scorsese. And so I love so many directors. But it was... But at the time when I first saw it, I didn't even have that. I didn't understand Scorsese and who he was and what he represented. I just remember, I knew that he was the guy that did Goodfellas. But then when I saw Raging Bull for the first time, because of the similarities, I think, between the Italian-American community in Little Italy and the Portuguese-American community here in Ironbound.
In Little Newark.
In Little Portugal.
In Little Portugal.
You know, and it was like that sort of, and you know what I'm talking about. It's like this, I mean, it's different. Obviously, there's a lot of differences, but there's a lot, it just spoke to me in that way where it was about people who had a hard time expressing themselves and articulating themselves. And so,
and you maybe even saw that with your parents when you first came. You know, you guys had to do a lot of that work. You know.
Yeah. I mean, my mom and my dad, they didn't, you know, and didn't speak a word of English. You know, so it's like, as hard as I feel like the journey is as a filmmaker, I feel like it can't even compare to what it is to be like the immigrant's journey. Like, my mom came to the U.S. and I remember her telling me, she's like, she came here. My mom came first before my father. My mom's like a G. She's like, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna check it out, and then I'll give you the okay to come. So she came like that, yeah. And she came, it's just like snow everywhere. They were living in Brazil for 10 years at the time. Copacabana, blah, 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 you know, that whole thing, you know. You know, so it's like
another
you know,
Citizen
very strong
Kane kind of story. Your
very
father's.
strong.
That's
very
another
strong.
whole other.
It's a whole
podcast.
other thing. It's a whole.
I got to bring him here. Yuri Alves.
He ain't ever coming back.
You know, right?
No.
Yeah.
No. You don't. He ain't coming back. He's staying in his land.
He did his thing.
He did his thing. Yeah.
Good
But you know,
for him.
you can put him on a Zoom though. You know, you could always do that. But I was gonna say, let me just tell you the last little
Your
bit
mom?
about the Raging Bull thing.
Oh yeah.
The Raging Bull thing was
the similarities.
But it was only that. It was obviously just the filmmaking and the performances and like just the black and white, like, you know, and just the way it was almost like, again, it was like this almost documentary kind of feeling, but also then very much the stylization and the way that he made the boxing ring be really about this guy's own internal sort of, you know, the demons that he has and just like the toxic masculinity that came about, especially in that era, which, you know, in Newark was a lot. It's so different from the European.
It's intense.
It can be intense, you know. We got those harsh winters, and it's
Normally
like
people
capitalism.
say, like, if you're making it in New York, make it anywhere. I think if you make it in Newark, you'll make it anywhere, right?
Boom, 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 boom. There it is, Brick City.
Brick City.
You know, you walk around, even right here, and like you have so many of, like, you just walk around and you turn to the left, and
Pretty
you just,
stimulating.
and you just see New York. But it's like, so, you know, it's like it's there, but we're over here, and over here there's its own, like, it's its own rule. You know the whole thing about the Ironbound, like why it's called the Ironbound. Do you know this?
Mm-hmm.
Why is it called the Ironbound?
Because it's circulated by the, you know,
by the train tracks.
By the train tracks.
Yeah. I love that. It's like the little Ellis Island of the Portuguese and the Brazilian. At least once upon a time, you know. Now
you know
it's
that
like,
my great grandfather's name is on Ellis Island. If you go to the museum, yeah, his signature is there.
Really?
He came 1906 or 8 or something.
Who's this?
My great grandfather. His signature is there. They had to sign. So as a part of the museum, you get to see the signatures, and they have the digitalized version. And
how cool
his
is
name
that?
is there. My mom, I remember going there
that's
with her,
awesome.
and she just started crying. Yeah, so like it goes way back. The whole sacrifice or the contribution of the Portuguese American community as well. So far, what has been the best part of your journey?
The experiences of life working with people, and that shared enthusiasm of creating something, and you know, and a vulnerability that is displayed when you're working, especially with actors that are, I don't know how actors do what they do. It's very magical, you know. And so I'm kind of like in awe of that ability for people to, you know, to have the courage to be naked and to give themselves up to something like that. I think that more and more, like, it's hard for people to have a reason to do that, because I think things have become so cynical. And I think that with cinema, I mean, although you could be telling stories, and I do sometimes, you know, sort of more heavy things, sort of the darker side of, you know, human behavior and tormented aspects that, you know, create bad decisions sometimes. It's like I've learned about myself and about the world around me through making films. What the real value, I think, is to be able to have something that you can do with your life that makes you confront and keeps you real, keeps you sincere. Because I think that if you're doing it and you're doing it for everything that it can be, it's a re-education of values, of morality, of new perspectives, of having an open mind, of creating, you know, no one answer, you know, like just questioning the world around you. We all are inherently good. We're all inherently bad. We all have this malevolence inside of us and virtues.
What does cinema mean to you?
Well, come on, man. What does it mean? Everything. Yeah, it means everything. You know, it's you know, that's what it means. It's like it's just the most magical thing ever, man. Right? Like, think about it, bro. It's like the audio sensual experience. You know, like, it's like, you know, like when you watch a film. It's been a long time since I've seen a film like that, but like those moments where, those truly great moments from an audience perspective, where you're literally, a film takes you away. Like, I'll never forget another film I saw. Like, I remember when I saw The Thin Red Line. You know, and then I know that Malick nowadays is kind of like, you know, he's become kind of a little bit different, and it's like a little bit repetitive in some ways, but he's still such a master and brilliant. I love him so much, his work. But again, a movie, like, and I saw The Thin Red Line. Like, you know, that was like, you know, like one of those experiences, like when you watch a movie that like does something and takes you down a path that is so unexpected. It's like, you know, your palms are sweaty. It's like, you know, like when you really have seen something that's like moved you, you know, you're like, whoa, God. It's like almost an enlightenment. Like, it's, you know, and I guess it's similar to, I don't know, perhaps what people feel like when, you know, they go to church, or when they have something that feels like it's something bigger than themselves. And so I feel like cinema is this wonderful art form that shows me different cultures, different lives, that challenges me, and that also just allows me to escape. And, you know, like watching Jurassic Park for the first time, I mean, can you fucking remember that? Like, what the hell was that about? Like, that was like, what a magical experience, like that wonder. And so it's like, I think as you get older, you stop losing your connection to like sort of the kid. You know, and the kid, not in like an immature way, but the kid meaning the guy who's like believes in all these things, and it's like, you know, like this kind of wonder of life, you know, of this crazy thing like that we're like living through, all these emotions that we feel and all of that. And it's like, and I think that films sort of also, I think they reinforce that, you know. And of course, they also make you feel like you're not so alone. And I think that, you know, I don't even want to say it's not even about educating. I think that cinema is just this, I can't imagine a world without cinema. And I also feel like it's such a powerful medium that, you know, there's almost like this dangerous element to it, which I also really like. I like that. I like that it's like, you know, that it can really affect people, you know. I'm not saying that in like this terrible way. I'm just saying that I like the fact that this thing is
responsibility as well.
Yeah, sure, but I like the fact that it's like there is this element to it that I feel like is like, I remember when I did that 9/11 documentary, for example, it was, you know, when we screened it to the entire school, you know, it was like this sort of cathartic moment. I remember that being like a big moment in my life, because I was like, oh wow, like, you know, there's a sort of, it can be this like healing power. But then you watch a movie like A Clockwork Orange, which is another film that fucking blew my mind. Yeah, Kubrick, it's just, I know everybody loves Kubrick, but yeah, there's a reasons why. But man, watching Clockwork Orange for the first time, you know, like that felt like I had just seen something that I shouldn't have seen. Like it was like, and I remember when I saw Clockwork Orange, I brought all my friends over, Chris and Tiago and this girl's. I mean, I brought them all over, and that was my thing. That was like my little weird thing that I like to do. I'm like, I'm going to show people movies that they probably are not going to see ever, or maybe they won't see for a very long time.
You like to educate them.
No, it's not that I like to educate them. I like to show them like films that I know are going to like shake them up, you know? And I'd like to, so I had this weird thing where I would like to, because I watch a movie again and again and again. I don't believe in watching a movie once or twice or three times. I feel like then you haven't watched the movie.
Right. So you like to show Clockwork Orange
it's like an album.
to your friends.
It's like an album. It's like an album. You hear an album.
Yeah.
You don't only hear it once. So I would bring my friends over and I show them the Clockwork Orange when I was in high school, just to see their reaction, because I wanted to see the movie affect them, because I remember how much it affected me. And I'm like, you know, it's almost like there's this perverseness to it, you know, but also, you know, again, like even in the Clockwork Orange, like this idea that, you know, you're trying to force somebody into not having his own will. Right. And and what does that mean? And like, and even those ideas of like, you know, this kind of conformity to, to law, and like where's that line? And I think that that's why it's such a timeless piece. Even though I know it's very heavy, I always find all of Stanley Kubrick movies, even though they're so heavy, I feel like in the end, I think they're not cold. It's not a distant experience. Not for me.
It's kind of relatable at the same time.
It's very relatable, because the first half of that movie, these guys are doing terrible things.
But they also explore human vulnerabilities.
Yeah, but the playfulness of like the way he does the cinema, that's the thing.
Makes it also kind of easier.
But it's almost like there's this mischievousness, by presenting things in this kind of playful manner, that it's almost like the filmmaker himself is like making you complicit by using the illusion of all of these elements to kind of make you feel like, oh, they're doing something terrible, but kind of like very exciting to like, and so that's what I'm saying about like, cinema has the power to do that, and so it's like it could, you could really. Like if you can make an audience be on the side of terrible people and then have empathy for them, I feel like, well, then that's probably a great movie. Because it's easier for me to show you the hero. They show you the hero, the guy who does good.
Sometimes the villain could also be very, people also like him. There's a...
Sure, but it
depends on how you do it.
Yeah, but when the main character is the villain, that's what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
Like there is no hero.
Right.
It's just, it's like, I feel like, which I guess is kind of like similar to even like Raging Bull, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, like by all the stretch of the imagination, like that's not a hero. But it's just like even Scarface. People are fascinated with Scarface till now. Because he's the guy that came from nothing, right? And he made it.
It's like a human relatable story, like you were telling about the Portuguese and Italian American.
Yeah.
To sum it up, what can your fans and audience keep on expecting from you?
Well, my fans. I don't know. I don't know how many fans I have, Carlos. I know you're my fan, and I appreciate that.
That's already.
But what
they keep on expecting from your journey?
Expecting me to just keep moving forward and fighting to make great work and working hard to create the necessary luck to be able to bring these things to life. Come on, man.
Hey, man. I thank you for coming
to
our PLUSABLE Talks. Where can people follow you?
Follow me on the Instagram, Yuri Alves Cinema. You can see my stuff on my website, yurialves.com. And you can also check out the Dreamplay website as well, dreamplaymedia.com. And
once again, thank you so much for coming. This was another PLUSABLE Talks with Yuri Alves. What an inspiration. What a story. You guys keep on following us. You can always also follow PLUSABLE on Instagram, PLUSABLE_PR. And, subscribe to our YouTube channel. And
do that.
What we're doing.
Do that. Hey, can I just, before you end your podcast, can I just say we thank you very much for everything you've done out here. I don't know how many people watching understand the amount of things that you're involved with. This is real talk. Let me just tell you this one thing. Like, you are an inspiration to a lot of people, dog. You know what I'm saying? From the musician and the journey that I know that you've had and all the things you had to go through. And from being a journalist, always putting your contribution, not only for the Portuguese people, but for the American people, and bringing people together, highlighting different artists like you're doing with me right now at this very moment, and there's a great value in that. And also, like, I just want to say, shout out to you. Thank you to you. And of course, also I want to give a shout out to your current partner, Isabel, little Izzy. We love you, girl. Thank you so much. And you know what? I would say she's somewhat of an angel. I would say, right? Somewhat of an angel. And anyway, so yeah, there you go.
There you go. Shout out to everybody out there. Thank you for sticking around. And this was another PLUSABLE Talks with our amazingly talented Yuri Alves.
Thank you, man.